a grand party where a man dramatically declares an end to his engagement with a woman named Alice. He explains this sudden decision by revealing that he has just remembered his past life as a Japanese person, which is shown through a flashback of him recalling these past life memories. In a large ornate ballroom filled with guests, a dark-haired man named X Lost stands pensively, noting how suspiciously quiet the venue has become. His gaze is fixed on the scene, while nearby, the beautiful silver-haired Alice Misty is surrounded by floating flower petals, her expression calm. X recognizes Alice as the fiancée of the first prince and the daughter of a duke. He suddenly realizes that she is a character from a romance game called Lovely Princess that he used to play in his previous life. Despite having been a man in that life, he had enjoyed the game and now identifies Alice as the story's villainous. X then reflects on his own identity in this world, recalling that he is X Lost, a character who is the least popular in the game's official website poll. He remembers the game's mechanics, including its various endings and the cast of characters, noting that Alice was the primary rival in the love story. He looks across the room and sees the prince, Mace Landry, standing beside the game's heroine, Maria, while publicly accusing Alice of terrible deeds. Prince Mace passionately lists Alice's supposed crimes, claiming she encouraged other nobles to exclude Maria and even hired an assassin to harm her in the shadows. As X watches from the side, he thinks to himself that the Alice from the game he remembers would never have gone to such extremes. This leads him to suspect that the entire scene is a setup, a common plot where a reincarnated heroine frames the villainous with false evidence to secure her own happy ending. The prince firmly declares his engagement with Lady Alice. In a stunning turn of events, X steps forward from the crowd and boldly asks Lady Alice to marry him instead. Alice, Prince Mace and Maria are all shown with expressions of complete shock and disbelief at this sudden proposal. Internally, X reveals that he had always been fond of Alice's character in the game, so much so that he once considered writing a story where she could find happiness. Seeing her genuine sadness in person has transformed his affection for her character into real love. He feels relieved that he had treated her kindly even before regaining his memories, and tells the prince that if he plans to abandon her, then he should leave her to him. X continues his plea, looking at Alice with adoration and confessing his love for her, which leaves her flustered and speechless. The prince, enraged by this interference, calls Alice a criminal and demands that X wake up from his madness. X stands firm, coolly warning the prince that he will not hesitate to act if the prince intends to cause Alice any more suffering, all while being overwhelmed by the desire to protect and embrace her. Meanwhile, the heroine Maria confronts Alice, questioning if she feels good about falsely accusing an innocent person. The prince jumps to Maria's defense, threatening to exile anyone who dares to insult her. However, another noble steps in, pointing out that he is hosted by the king himself, and that the prince doesn't have the authority for such actions, suggesting the king's silence is a test of the prince's judgment. The noble continues to challenge the prince, implying that the king is observing his recent actions to determine if he is fit to rule. As the flustered prince orders the guards to seize the man, X takes the opportunity to lead Alice away from the commotion. The guards hesitate to follow when X challenges their loyalty, asking whether they serve the prince or the king. Just then, X's father, the commander of the knights, appears and gives them permission to leave, resolving the standoff. Once they are away from the party, Alice apologizes to X for getting him involved in her troubles, and they both agree to call each other by their first names. X, however, refuses to accept her apology, insisting that the fault was his for not understanding her feelings sooner. He points out that the prince could have handled the situation differently, such as annulling the engagement peacefully, but instead chose to humiliate her publicly. He expresses his desire to know her true feelings about the matter. X vows that he will always be on her side no matter what happens. He even promises to support her with all his being if she happens to love another man, as his only wish is for her to be happy. Alice expresses her insecurities, feeling like a defective product, because her engagement was broken off in such a public manner. X passionately refutes this, calling her a perfect treasure in his eyes. He asks her to spend the rest of her life with him, so that he can love and protect her always. He continues his heartfelt confession, promising to defend her honor with his sword against anyone who looks down on her. X declares that he loves her deeply, regardless of whether the whole world hates her or even if she doesn't return his feelings. With deep sincerity, He asks Alice Misty one more time if she will be his wife. Overcome with emotion, Alice quietly accepts his proposal. X is filled with relief and joy, reflecting that he had expected her to reject such a direct confession. He realizes that from the moment he regained his memories, his feelings for her transformed from loving a game character to loving her as a real person, making it love at first sight. He makes a silent vow to love and protect Alice forever, certain that his feelings will never change. Their moment is interrupted by the arrival of Alice's father, Reed Misty, the head of the Misty Duke family, who has been looking for her. Duke Misty confronts X, who greets him formally before announcing that he has just proposed to Alice and that she has accepted his offer. He then respectfully asks the Duke for his daughter's hand in marriage. X humbly admits to the Duke that he had previously been a negative presence in Alice's life by ignoring her suffering. He explains that he has now regained his true feelings for her and is determined to spend his life protecting her. In response, the Duke draws his sword and lunges at X in a swift, serious attack. X notes internally that his physical abilities have increased exponentially since his reincarnation, allowing him to perceive the attack and react accordingly. The Duke is impressed that X was able to see the trajectory of his sword, acknowledging his skill as the son of the commander. X respectfully repeats his request for Alice's hand in marriage. The Duke initially questions what benefit his family would gain from this union. X explains his plan for their families to form a powerful alliance by establishing strong ties with the country's knights, which would greatly increase their influence among the nobility. Understanding the strategic benefit, the Duke gives his consent but sternly warns X that he must be prepared to die if he ever makes Alice cry. He then turns to his daughter, telling her to let him know if X ever causes her any trouble. After the Duke leaves, Alice rushes over to X, concerned that he might be hurt, but he assures her he is fine. She tells him he was very cool during the confrontation, and he finds her concern incredibly adorable. He confesses that he was fully prepared to elope with her if her father had refused, imagining a romantic story of a knight kidnapping a princess. X then playfully gives Alice 3 choices for the rest of the evening. She can return home, stay at his house, or spend the night with him in a cabin he has prepared. A flustered Alice immediately chooses the first option, admitting she is not mentally prepared for anything more intimate, a reaction X finds utterly charming. X agrees to escort her home, promising to continue their courtship properly the next day. Upon his return, he is greeted by his father, Vector Lost, the commander of the knights. His father commends him for acting as a proper knight by protecting a lady. However, X clarifies that his actions were not motivated by duty, but by his deep personal love for Alice as a woman. His father acknowledges that he had been informed of his son's infatuation. When asked how he managed to get the Duke's permission, X casually says he just asked, conveniently leaving out the part where the Duke nearly cut him in half with his sword. His father, believing the story, promises to fully support their engagement. X then outlines his new life plan. After graduating next year, he will join the Knights and inherit his family's title, a future he once disliked but now embraces for the sake of being with Alice. His father then provides an update on the situation at the palace, revealing that the prince has lost his right to the throne, and his followers, including Maria, have been arrested by the king's order. He mentions that Maria has seemingly gone mad from the ordeal and is now locked away. Looking out a window, X reflects on these events, feeling that he cannot build his happiness on Alice's misfortune. He anticipates that the game's other characters will now see him as a traitor and direct their hatred towards him, but he stands resolute, vowing to protect Alice from any future threats they might pose. X arriving at the grand residence of the Misty family, feeling determined on the day after his proposal. His primary goal is to see his beloved Alice, but he also knows he must formally greet her parents, the Duke and Duchess, to properly ask for their daughter's hand in marriage. Alice comes out to greet him, and X is immediately struck by her beauty, telling her that her smile is incredibly cute and had captivated him. A slightly flustered Alice asks if something is wrong, but X reassures her he was simply lost in admiration for her smile. Internally, his mind is filled with thoughts of how cute she is, so much so that a funny thought bubble appears, asking if he wants to save this precious memory to his personal file, an idea his inner voice enthusiastically confirms with a double yes. Alice leads him towards her waiting father, mentioning that the Duke might be tough to deal with, but she appreciates X's efforts. X, in turn, says he's grateful for the opportunity to meet her parents properly. Inside a lavish room, they are met by Duke Misty, who greets X with a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. The Duke asks if he slept well, and X honestly replies that he slept soundly while dreaming of Alice. X then turns his attention to the Duchess, complimenting her timeless beauty, which earns him a playful warning that her husband gets very jealous. The Duke's unsmiling eyes seem to confirm this, especially after the flattery directed at his wife. X formally explains that while a proposal was sent, he felt it was important to ask in person. The Duchess is warm and welcoming, telling him there's no need for such formality as they will soon be family, and she even invites him to call her mother-in-law. X is delighted by this, feeling reassured to be on good terms with her. However, the Duke quickly cuts in with a strained expression, reminding X that he has not yet given his approval and sternly forbidding him from using the term father-in-law. Undeterred, X directly asks for permission to marry Alice. The Duchess teases her husband, suggesting he secretly likes X, which he denies. The Duke eventually concedes that he will respect his daughter's wishes. He then issues a stern warning: if X ever makes Alice cry, he will face severe consequences. X meets this threat with unwavering resolve, declaring that if Alice ever cries, it is his sole responsibility, and the Duke would be welcome to strike him down. When asked why he feels so strongly, X simply states that he loves Alice and naturally wants to see her smile always. Moved by this profound dedication, the Duke gives his silent approval, on the condition that X can always protect her. A brief flashback reveals a memory of a younger X asking for Alice's hand, cementing the fact that he was her first love. Back in the present, X rejoins Alice, who is waiting for him. He is once again overwhelmed by her presence, internally calling her an angel and a goddess. Alice nervously asks how the meeting with her father went. X happily reports that he received permission for their marriage, sharing that her father's only condition was that he must never make her cry. He also adds that her mother fully supports their union and wants to be called mother-in-law. Overjoyed, Alice makes a request of her own, shyly asking if X could call her just Alice, without any honorifics. In return, her condition is that she gets to call him just X. They softly say each other's names for the first time, sealing their new level of intimacy. To celebrate, X presents Alice with a plate of cookies, which she notes are a brand she's never seen. He proudly reveals that he baked them himself, a skill he recalls from a past life. Alice is utterly delighted, and with a huge smile, she insists there's no way she wouldn't like them and is incredibly happy. She takes a bite, and her expression confirms they are delicious. Watching her enjoy the cookies he made brings X immense joy, making all his effort feel worthwhile. As their time together winds down, he laments that school the next day means he can't stay longer, wishing a day had 50 hours to spend with her. He realizes, however, that it's the limited nature of their time that makes each moment so precious. The following day at school, their presence together causes a stir among the other students, who murmur about the rumors of their relationship being true. Alice feels a bit overwhelmed by the attention, but X reassures her that as long as his love for her is clear, nothing else matters. Their sweet interaction only fuels the excitement of their classmates. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted when a young man grabs X's shoulder from behind. X reacts instantly, twisting the man's arm and telling him not to grab him so unexpectedly. The man introduces himself as Fanractor, a name X doesn't immediately recall. X's memory is jogged, and he remembers Fan as a minor character who was in love with the story's heroine, Maria, but was always ignored. Fan angrily reminds X of a promise to help him get together with Maria, who is now rumored to be locked away in a cell. Fan demands to know what X has been doing, and X coldly replies that he has been confessing to the person he truly loves, Alice. He states bluntly that he doesn't care about Maria and wants Fan to leave them alone. He then reveals the truth. Maria had tried to falsely accuse someone of stealing their fiancé, and that is why she is in trouble. Fan refuses to believe it, but X warns him to stop interfering, or he will be removed by force. After Fan leaves, X apologizes to Alice for involving her. She tells him it's okay and sweetly says that she is the happy one, getting to be his fiancé. Her heartfelt words touch X deeply, who internally declares her cuteness to be a World Heritage-level treasure meant only for him. He knows Fan will likely cause more trouble, but for Alice's sake, he resolves to handle the situation carefully and play his cards right. At a new face appears, identified as Rince Landry, the second prince of the Landry Kingdom, who approaches Lost Coin and Miss Misty. An explanation reveals that Prince Rince is the younger twin brother of Prince Mace, who is the main target in the game. Unlike his brother, Rince was just a side character who appeared in flashbacks and was not a capture target. A small drawing shows Rince and X being friendly in the past. It's noted that Rince is far more talented and handsome than his brother Mace, which caused Mace to develop an inferiority complex and ultimately be won over by the game's heroine. The story returns to the present as Prince Rince formally apologizes to Miss Misty and Lost Coin for the trouble his brother caused them, asking them to raise their heads. He acknowledges that Miss Misty would have been in a worse situation if Lost Coin had not stepped in to help. Meanwhile, Miss Misty thinks about her own feelings, admitting that while the broken engagement made her a little sad, she is now truly happy because X is by her side and has confessed his love for her. As she reflects on this, X makes a heartfelt promise to Alice, vowing that he will protect her for the rest of his life. Their tender moment is interrupted by Prince Rince, who politely asks if he can speak with them, and Alice graciously agrees. Prince Rince delivers the surprising news that he has replaced his brother and is now the crown prince. He explains that he will need help to protect the country and formally asks Lost Coin to become his trusted ally and strength. Lost Coin clarifies if the prince is asking him to be a confidant, and Rince confirms this, noting that Lost Coin is expected to one day lead the Knights like his father. Rince expresses his trust in him as a future ally of the nation. Lost Coin agrees to help on the important condition that no harm comes to Miss Misty. Satisfied with the arrangement, Lost Coin privately notes that Rince seems much smarter than his brother. Rince then shares that his original plan was to step in and protect Miss Misty himself if her public condemnation had continued. Lost Coin makes his own position clear, stating that he is against Alice becoming the queen for anyone, even Prince Rince, and that he has given up on that path and will find another candidate. With this understanding, Lost Coin agrees to be Rince's confidant as long as Alice remains safe. He then suggests they become friends and start by calling each other by their names. Rince agrees that X can call him by his name and use an informal tone, as long as it's not in public. He then turns to Miss Misty and asks for her permission to occasionally borrow X as a bodyguard. Miss Misty expresses some concern, wondering if X is truly ready for real combat situations, which are very different from simply having sword skills. X reassures her that it will be fine, and she gives her consent. A little worried, Miss Misty playfully tests X, asking what he would do if she felt lonely while he was away on his duties. Without a moment's hesitation, X declares he would immediately refuse the job to stay by her side, proclaiming that Alice is his highest priority. Touched by his devotion, she asks him to speak more informally with her from now on, as she wants to get to know his true self completely. X happily agrees to speak more casually with her, just as Prince Rince returns to fetch him. Rince explains that something concerning has come up and asks X to step outside with him to discuss it. Since they have separate classes that day, X wants to check on Alice first, but Rince assures him it's fine and that he will understand the situation once they get there. X looks on with curiosity, wondering if Alice is busy. They peer into a classroom and see Alice completely surrounded by a crowd of other girls, all chattering excitedly. Rince explains that the girls are likely taking advantage of X's absence to talk to her freely. A slightly dejected X wonders if his own lack of charisma is why people don't flock to him, but Rince reassures him that his turn will come. Seeing that Alice will be occupied for a while, Rince leads X away to talk. As they walk, Rince reveals that he wants to discuss his brother and his former followers, who are now at home reflecting on their actions. He confesses his confusion over how a commoner girl managed to charm them and lead them to become so corrupt, which prompts X to ask if Rince himself has any feelings for the woman. Rince dismisses the idea and offers a shocking theory: the woman may be a magic user. He explains that in their world, magic exists not as an overwhelming force, but as a rare physical trait. For example, some are born with a minor ability to control water, but these powers are usually kept secret. Rince continues his explanation, describing magic as highly unstable and unreliable for things like military use. It can appear suddenly after puberty and vanish just as quickly, or it can last a lifetime from childhood. It's more common in noble families, but often skips generations. X connects the dots and asks the critical question: does Rince believe the woman is using charm magic? Rince confirms that it is a strong possibility. He describes charm magic as a power that has a hypnotic effect on the opposite sex, and reveals that even the king suspects the woman possesses this ability, possibly using it unconsciously. If she can control it intentionally, she is an even greater threat, which is why she cannot be carelessly released. X wonders if his own physical enhancement magic is why he was immune to her charm. Rince acknowledges that X's family, the Viscount Lost lineage, is known for manifesting physical enhancement magic. However, X believes there's another reason for his immunity. He theorizes that his memories of a past life and his reincarnation into this world may grant him the ability to nullify such charms, while also cheekily thinking to himself that Alice is simply cuter anyway. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Rince declares he will investigate the woman himself and asks X to come with him for protection. X lets out a sigh, realizing this was the prince's true intention all along. He agrees to help Rince the next day, but makes it clear he can't stay long, as his priority is spending time with Alice. Rince gratefully accepts his terms. Internally, X reaffirms his commitment, thinking that while he is willing to be friends with Rince, he would not hesitate to eliminate him if he ever became a danger to Alice. Later, back in the classroom with Alice, X contemplates the situation and decides to seize the opportunity, suddenly taking her hand. He then pulls a surprised Alice into a warm hug, causing the other students to blush and comment on what a lovely couple they make. Although embarrassed by the public display, Alice melts into the embrace and quietly asks him to continue holding her. Afterwards, X apologizes for his sudden impulse, explaining that he couldn't control himself. To make it up to her, he promises to do anything she wants. Alice, who is more flustered than angry, decides to take him up on his offer. With a sly smile, Alice confirms if he'll really do anything, and he promises he will. Her first simple request is for him to say, "Ah," so she can feed him. X is surprised, admitting he didn't think she was interested in such romantic gestures. Alice reminds him that before she is a noble lady, she is a girl who enjoys these things, which makes X smile at her cute request. Curious, X asks what other requests she has in mind. Alice happily lists her desires: to walk while holding hands, to be hugged from behind, and even to be carried like a princess someday. X enthusiastically agrees to fulfill all her wishes, promising to get to them all, but for now, they start with her first request. With a lunch lovingly prepared by X, Alice holds up a piece of food and tells him to say, "Ah," which he happily does, letting her feed him. He declares the food is delicious, but would taste even better if she fed him. Pleased, Alice continues to feed him. In the middle of their meal, X suddenly wraps his arms around her from behind, startling her. He apologizes once more, admitting that remembering all her cute requests made him unable to contain his affection. He tells her there is nothing better than sharing a peaceful lunch with her like this, and asks if they can stay this way for just a little while longer. Alice softly agrees, and he thanks her. As he holds her, X's thoughts drift to his unwavering devotion. He doesn't care about her designated role as a villainous in some otome game. To him, she is simply Alice, his one and only. He silently vows to protect her smile no matter what, ready to fight the entire world if it ever turned against her. Just as he is lost in his thoughts about protecting Alice from any future challenges, a mysterious figure appears before him. The stranger greets him as X Lost, but then adds a chilling twist, referring to him as a different entity that is merely wearing X's skin, that X is informed that the Emperor himself wishes to have an audience with him. X looks concerned and confirms that he must go alone, and as a large door clacks shut, he feels a bad premonition about the meeting while his companion agrees to wait for him. As another heavy door creaks open, X walks into the throne room, thinking that the man before him may be a different entity wearing the Emperor's skin, a creepy thought that his friend had dismissed. He gives a deep formal bow to the Emperor, who is seated on the throne, and expresses his honor at being granted a meeting. The Emperor greets him as the son of Viscount X Lost, seen right through him, and X corrects him, proudly stating he is X Lost of the Lost Viscounty, while the Emperor tells him not to call him an imposter. The Emperor confesses that he was unexpectedly entertained when X stole a woman from his own worthless son, remarking that such a fool could never rule the country and that making Linz the crown prince was the correct decision. X looks up seriously and says that even the Emperor cannot be allowed to speak of his own son in such a way. He proudly states his position as the next head of his family, suggesting his love for someone has helped him grow, and the Emperor takes this bold declaration as a form of confession. X, feeling the intense pressure of the situation, asks if he was summoned just for this conversation. The Emperor reveals his real reason for the meeting, explaining that he is curious about how X managed to persuade the very stubborn Duke Misty. X replies that he simply expressed his feelings for Alice to the Duke, though he privately thinks the Emperor would not believe the full story and recalls how difficult the Duke was to deal with. The Emperor then teases him by asking if it was a passionate love confession, which makes X uncomfortable because it sounds like he confessed his love to the Duke, and he asks the Emperor to stop making misleading jokes. The Emperor then becomes serious and makes a request, asking X to protect his foolish son, Linz, if he finds himself in any danger. He explains that X is scheduled to meet the girl who seduced his son next, and X, with a concerned look, asks what the Emperor plans to do with her and Lord Mace, while his inner thoughts confirm his love is only for Alice. The Emperor reveals his intentions for the girl, stating that at worst she will be executed, and at best she will be placed under house arrest because her charm magic is too dangerous to be left unchecked. He also expresses concern that his idiotic son might try to run away with her at any moment. X silently considers that if it weren't for the charm magic, exile would have been a sufficient punishment, and while he doesn't care for the girl, he worries that if she is killed, it might negatively affect Alice, and he cannot forgive anyone who would bring harm to her. X agrees to protect Lord Linz, but asks the Emperor not to execute the girl so hastily, as he worries that any resulting grudges could be directed at Alice, a burden he would rather bear himself. The Emperor smirks, saying he expected X to say that and that he is counting on him, which makes X suspect this was the Emperor's plan from the very beginning. As X prepares to leave, the Emperor asks if he shouldn't be more concerned for his own safety. X replies that if anything were to happen to him, he would have to rely on the Emperor and the girls, but he promises to do what he can. At a prison, a guard opens a cell door, announcing that an inmate has a visitor. Inside the cell, a young woman named Maria greets X with excitement, believing he has come to rescue her. However, Prince Lin steps forward and clarifies that he is the second prince, Lin's Laundry, not his older brother whom she tried to steal Miss Misty from. Maria is left confused, asking who this new person is. Linz asks Maria if she is fully conscious, and she says she probably is. As she reaches a hand toward him, he suddenly stumbles back, feeling as though he was almost caught by her charm magic, which confirms X's suspicion that she can use it intentionally. Linz leans against a wall, telling X that he can handle the rest and will heal the damage from his earlier tackle, jokingly asking if X is holding a grudge. X tells him his part is done for now and turns his attention to Maria, thinking how troublesome it is that she can consciously use her powers. He greets Maria in her cell and implies that he knows she, like him, is a reincarnated person. Maria, looking through the prison bars, asks if he is truly X and quickly realizes that he must also be a reincarnated. X confirms this by saying that just as she isn't the real Maria, he might not be who she thinks he is. She then asks if he possesses an item that makes her magic ineffective. Before answering, X asks her if she is familiar with the Otome game, Lovely Princess, which she is. He then questions if she framed Alice to seduce the prince, but she strongly denies it, revealing that her actual target was the hidden character, a man she describes as troublesome. X is puzzled by the mention of a ported version of the game and a hidden character, realizing Maria possesses game knowledge that he lacks, which complicates his initial plan for her to make a quiet exit. Maria explains that in the ported version of the game, the engagement cancellation event had to be triggered by the hidden character's butler. X then asks if her goal was to create a reverse harem for herself. X changes his approach and proposes that Maria team up with him by becoming Alice's maid. He explains that this position would not only seem like a natural form of atonement to the public, but would also give her the opportunity to build a relationship with the hidden character. Maria chuckles and calls him insane, questioning if he has considered that she might betray him, take over the country, or use her powers to banish the villainous Alice, to which X calmly replies that he knows that possibility exists. Maria giggles at his confidence and asks if his plan is enough to get her out of her current predicament. X assures her it will be fine, but sternly warns that if any harm comes to Alice, he will not hesitate to cut her down. He then prompts her to consider why he and Crown Prince Linz were the ones sent to deal with her. X explains that the king likely saw through her charm magic and acting from the start, and sent them to find a way to use her abilities effectively. Maria smirks, acknowledging the crafty king's intelligence, and accepts that X's offer is her only path toward her desired outcome, sighing at how her life as an otome game heroine has turned out. Suddenly, Maria bursts into laughter, finding the whole situation hilarious. X asks if she would have preferred to be condemned as an eccentric instead. They then ask each other about their reincarnation experiences. She reveals she was reincarnated as a child, while he says this occurred during an engagement annulment. Maria confesses that she was terrified when she was reincarnated because she suddenly found herself in a completely different world, a feeling she compares to being kidnapped. In contrast, X states that he has never felt fear and was only focused on saving Alice, regardless of who he became, because she is the person he loves most, not just a favorite character. Maria looks at him with admiration and says she envies his ability to live so true to himself. X simply states that there is no point in holding back in the face of Alice's cuteness. He extends his hand for a handshake to formalize their cooperation, and she accepts, agreeing to become Alice's maid. Later, Alice is surprised when X tells her she will be getting a new maid. He explains that it is someone she already knows who wishes to atone for her past actions. Alice recognizes Maria from the party and apologizes for what happened, but Maria tells her not to worry. Maria then says she understands why X fell for Alice, calling her both smart and cute. When Alice asks if she was aware of the situation back then, Maria admits she was and feels partly responsible for not intervening. As they talk, X gently holds Alice's hand and reassures her that he will protect her. Maria comments that doting on Alice is X's privilege, but playfully suggests he should share her a little now that she is her mistress. Alice shows a hint of jealousy and tells Maria not to get too close to X, a possessive reaction that secretly makes X incredibly happy. Alice agrees to accept Maria as her maid, but with one condition. Alice's condition is that there must be no indecent acts between them, specifically defining this as holding hands, kissing, or calling each other's names in an intimate way. Maria agrees to this promise and asks for permission to report to X for her work duties. With the terms agreed upon, Maria formally introduces herself and asks Miss Alice Misty to allow her to serve by her side. Maria playfully teases Alice, saying X seems like a handful, but Alice quickly denies it. Nearby, X stares intently at them, and a graphic shows his Alice folder of videos being rapidly filled. Maria and Alice decide how to address each other, settling on being informal when they are alone, and with that, the unlikely situation of the game's heroine becoming the villainous made officially begins. However, X knows they cannot fully trust Maria until her personal issues are resolved. He believes that having someone with knowledge of the otome game beside Alice will make it easier to handle any future problems. With this in mind, he approaches the Misty House butler, Bariz, to discuss placing Maria under surveillance. X asks Bariz to take on the task of watching Maria, and Bariz asks why he was chosen for this role. In his mind, X knows it is because Bariz is the hidden capture target from the ported version of Lovely Princess. Out loud, however, he simply states that it is because Bariz is Alice's butler. Bariz explains that his duties are more akin to a guard, as he is skilled in combat and primarily handles schedules. Bariz reveals he has already heard rumors from the head butler that the new maid can use magic, leading X to conclude that the Duke must have intentionally leaked the Bariz notes that since charm magic is less effective on the same sex, the other servants can likely handle her by watching out for each other. X confirms this is precisely why he needs Bariz, a handsome and capable man, since he cannot always be by Alice's side himself. Bariz points out that as a man, he would be at a disadvantage against her magic. X leans in and whispers the truth. The new maid can use charm magic. The perceptive butler immediately asks if he is being recruited. X confirms this, revealing his plan to build a small, loyal team to support Alice when they marry, and Bariz is his first choice. Bariz sighs, feeling he has no choice but to accept. X applies pressure by warning him that if he refuses, Alice will feel lonely, something he will not permit. When Bariz worries about what might happen if he falls under her charm, X gives a chilling reply, telling him to simply give up and become a sacrifice. X anticipates that Maria will aggressively pursue Bariz. X's master plan is for Maria and Bariz to end up together, allowing him to recruit both of them into his household to ensure Alice's complete safety. Just as this thought crosses his mind, an unseen person shouts his name and challenges him to a fight, bringing the chapter to a dramatic close at a grand school where a blonde-haired young man confronts the dark-haired X, asking if he was the cause of a commotion that morning. X looks back coolly and questions the accusation. Nearby, other students are seen gossiping amongst themselves, wondering why the new maid has become Lady Misty's attendant and referring to her as a witch. A beautiful blonde girl named Alice stands calmly, thinking to herself that the whispers are to be expected. The students murmur that this is what happens when someone who had their engagement broken, like Alice, decides to person who caused it to become her servant. A small, cartoonish version of a character interjects in a thought bubble, stating that the situation was not just an attempt, but a clearly planned event. Another thought expresses concern about bringing the new maid, Maria, along for fear of attracting more trouble. But this is countered by a strategic thought to use the situation to get rid of troublemakers and improve Alice's public image at the same time. Suddenly, a young man with light brown hair named Fanareha appears, looking shocked and furious to see Maria in a servant's uniform. He angrily demands to know why she is dressed that way. Standing beside Alice, X watches as Fanareha, overwhelmed with emotion, declares that he cannot stand by silently after Maria was falsely accused and humiliated. With a flash of steel, Fanareha draws his sword and, clenching his fist, challenges X to a duel right then and there. Fanareha passionately declares that if he the duel, X must set Maria free. X calmly asks what Fanareha will offer if he is the one who wins, to which Fanareha agrees to do anything X says. They arrange to meet at the school's training ground after classes. A tiny character frets over the promise that was made, but is reassured that everything will be fine, though there is still worry that X might get hurt. Fanareha eagerly accepts the terms, shouting for X to prepare himself for defeat. Later, a character reflects that Fanareha likely initiated the conflict because he is consumed by feelings that will never be returned, noting that such one-sided emotions can sometimes lead to madness. The scene then shifts to a tender moment between X and Alice, where she thanks him and says she accepts all of his feelings. X gently takes her hands and reassures her that he not only accepts her feelings, but will show his in return, telling her everything is okay. At a small, glasses-wearing chibi version of X thinks about how much he wanted to embrace Alice in that moment, and then wonders why she chose to make Maria her servant. The story provides some context about a popular media franchise called Lovely Princess, which includes sequels, alternate timelines, and numerous side stories. A small chibi Alice explains this to a bewildered X, admitting that even she doesn't understand all of it. The blonde young man from the beginning reappears, warning X that Maria could be a dangerous person in many ways, and explains that in the story, Alice is actually the villainous. However, a thought bubble questions this, asking if X isn't actually more dangerous than Maria, and revealing the existence of an unpopular storyline where X himself is a romanceable character. Alice is shown with a determined expression, thinking that even if she were to condemn the heroine, it wouldn't erase her own painful memories, which is why she is so resolved to protect her. A strategic thought reveals a plan to use charm magic as a tricky way to protect Alice in an emergency, as she remains the primary focus. The scene changes to after school, where a massive cheering crowd has gathered at the training grounds to witness the duel. A sad-looking Alice walks through the crowd, as a narrative box explains that she tends to blame herself for everything, always pushing herself into a corner rather than resenting others. At the dueling ground, Alice approaches X with concern, noting he seems less energetic than usual and asking if she can help in any way. The blonde young man remarks that it's surprising to see X fighting for a woman, but X clarifies that he is doing this for Alice's sake. He reassures a worried Alice that he is okay and won't be defeated so easily. A small thought wonders if Alice has noticed the subtle changes in him. Looking at Alice, X asks if he can have a reward from her if he wins the duel. When she agrees, he cheekily asks for a kiss, which makes her blush brightly. She consents, hoping it will boost his spirits. Feeling motivated, X thanks her and says that now he absolutely cannot lose. Just then, Fan Ruho arrives, commenting that he is glad X did not run away. The terms of the duel are set. If Fan Ruho wins, Maria is freed, but if X wins, Fan must grant him any wish. X inspects his training sword, noting its lightness and lack of durability compared to his own weapon, and decides that deflecting strikes will be a better strategy than trying to block them. The duel begins with a loud shout of "Start." Fan Ruha immediately lunges forward, swinging his sword down in a powerful arc. However, X sidesteps the attack with ease, causing Fan to stumble forward off balance and look back in shock. A voice narrates that one should never be so surprised in the middle of a fight. X continues to effortlessly evade every one of Fan Ruha's desperate swings, as shown in a series of small panels where he simply dodges each attack. Fan Ruha grows increasingly frustrated, yelling at X to stop running and fight him properly. X coolly replies that if he were to fight seriously, the match would be over far too quickly, and he wants to clearly show the vast difference in their abilities. As the one-sided fight continues, a voice tells Fan Ruha that he cannot win in his current state. Fan shouts back defiantly, angered that X is using someone he doesn't even truly like as an excuse for his actions. In the audience, chibi versions of Alice and the blonde man watch on, with the blonde man sarcastically cheering that Fan is trying his best. The duel reaches its swift conclusion as X disarms Fan Ruha, sending his sword flying. The winner is officially declared to be X standing over his defeated opponent. X tells him that throwing a childish tantrum will not get him what he wants. Alice watches from the sidelines, thinking to herself that while it's nice to see X excited, it is a little embarrassing in front of such a large crowd. Spectators rush toward X, asking if he is all right after fighting against a sword barehanded. After the match, a question is raised about what to do with Fan Ruha, and X simply says that he has given him some advice, and the rest is up to him. X then turns his attention to Alice, kneeling before her and dedicating his victory to her. In a grand gesture before the entire crowd, X kneels on one knee and takes Alice's hand. The onlookers are stunned, with some shouting that it looks like a marriage proposal and others remarking on how bold and lovely the scene is. X makes a solemn promise to Alice, declaring that he will fight for her from now on and will defeat any opponent that stands in their path, asking only that she believe in him and stay by his side. Alice looks on, completely surprised by his sudden declaration. X's inner thoughts reveal his strategy. By publicly demonstrating his overwhelming strength, he will deter others from bothering Alice. He also admits to himself that he wanted to look cool in front of her. His plan works perfectly, as the students begin to whisper among themselves, establishing a new unspoken rule at the academy to never cross the Knight Commander's son or his fiancée. Later, X visits a recovering Fan Ruha and confronts him directly, asking if he ever truly cared for Maria. Fan defensively yells that it's not true, clearly agitated. He accuses X of coming only to mock him, but X says something unexpected. He tells Fan that he actually thinks he's amazing for challenging him with false feelings and for having the courage to push forward with his plan anyway. X continues his analysis, telling Fan that his core issue isn't envy but loneliness, and that his actions were an attempt to feel what it's like to be a hero who helps others to validate his own existence. X then reveals a critical piece of information. He tells Fan that his own maid is in love with him. He knows this because the way she looks at Fan is the same way that he and Alice look at one another. He presses Fan, asking him what it is that he truly desires. Fan Ruha breaks down and confesses everything. He admits that he has a maid he has known for a long time who, despite being clumsy and slow, he genuinely likes. His heartbreak began when he saw her speaking intimately with his own father, leading him to believe she saw his dad as someone more special than him. In an attempt to forget his pain, he met Maria and, seeing how popular she was, convinced himself he liked her too. Pretending to be in love with Maria was a way for him to distract himself from his true feelings and the situation at home. X offers Fan a different interpretation of what he saw. He points out that Fan's father, Baron Ruha, is known for his kindness, particularly for hiring orphans. He suggests that the maid, being an orphan herself, likely sees the Baron as a father figure, and her feelings are those of parental affection, not romantic love. This revelation shocks Fan, who realizes he created a huge misunderstanding and was jealous over something so simple. X encourages him, telling him that his ability to take action is impressive and that he has the potential to protect those he truly cares about. X inspires Fan Ruha to not give up, reminding him that if he was willing to pick a fight for Maria, someone he didn't even like, he could become so much stronger if he fought for someone he truly loves. Fan expresses doubt, citing their difference in social status as an insurmountable barrier. X dismisses this, encouraging him to be true to his feelings and promising his support if he does. Meanwhile, a thought is shown from the maid's perspective, revealing that the stage is now perfectly set. With Fan Ruta feeling vulnerable, it is the ideal opportunity for her to act on her feelings and make him fall for her, believing that social status is a barrier that can be overcome. The next day, Alice happily greets X, asking if he encountered any trouble. His companion complains that he was swarmed by other women and Maria didn't even help him. He then tells Alice not to worry so much, because X will always be there to protect her. Hearing this, X smiles and remarks that he is relieved to see Maria is finally starting to feel more comfortable with them. In a private moment, Alice makes her feelings very clear to X. She tells him that he is not allowed to be with any other woman, and that there are other things he is forbidden from doing with other women as well. X readily agrees, adding that he will not tolerate her being with any other man either. Alice confirms that she feels the same, wanting no one else but him. Alice clarifies that her rules are absolute, forbidding even a simple greeting kiss from another man. Chuckling, X says that if that's the case, then everything he has belongs to her. He leans in close, teasingly asking if this means approaching her like this to kiss her is also not allowed. Alice proclaims that of course it is, as every part of her belongs completely to him. X then playfully reminds Alice of their deal. Since he won the duel, he is owed his reward. A blushing Alice agrees and tells him to close his eyes. She nervously contemplates where to place the kiss, wondering if she should aim for his hand, like he did for her earlier, or perhaps his cheek. In a beautiful, sparkling full-page image, Alice stands on her toes and gives X a sweet and gentle kiss directly on the lips. After the kiss, Alice sighs softly, admitting with a blush that it was her very first kiss, and shyly asks X to take responsibility for it. X smiles warmly, pulling her into a loving embrace and gladly promising that he will. The scene fades to the following day at the academy. On the final page, X and Alice are seen walking together, holding hands and smiling. In the background, a happy-looking Fan Ruta is walking with his maid, while the blonde-haired young man from the beginning watches them with a satisfied smile. Alice thinks to herself that she would gladly go anywhere with X, bringing the chapter to a happy conclusion. Fan Ruta expresses his profound gratitude, as his deepest wish has finally been granted. The dark-haired protagonist, X, stands before him and agrees, but with a condition attached. Fan must now become his subordinate. X clarifies that he is giving Fan what he wants, though his actions were not specifically for Fan's benefit. In response, Fan hopefully asks if X is truly offering him a place where he can belong. X outlines his plan for Fan, instructing him to join the Knight Order after graduating from the academy. He warns Fan that if he becomes the leader of the order, Fan will be expected to work as hard as a draft horse and asks if he has any complaints about this demanding future. Fan firmly states that his absolute top priority will always be the protection of a woman named Henri. He makes it clear that he cannot swear absolute loyalty because Henri's safety will always come first in a crisis. Fan agrees to the terms without any other problems. X accepts this condition, saying it would be troubling otherwise, and smirks with thought that protecting the person you love is what a real man does. He officially welcomes Fan Ruta, who then thanks Lord X for the opportunity. Later, a blonde-haired prince remarks to X that he is incredibly sharp, noting his sensitivity to people's hearts and his impressive physical abilities. The prince admits he initially thought X would break Fan's heart before trying to reform him, a plan X confesses he had considered to some extent. Nearby, a maid and the prince both show looks of surprise. The conversation shifts as X casually asks the prince if a person named Rince has a preferred type of romantic partner. The prince, momentarily flustered, questions if X is interested in the same sex and clarifies that he means the opposite sex. He reassures X that they will remain friends regardless of his hobbies, though he might keep a bit more physical distance. Someone off-panel questions the just physical distance remark. As this happens, Text praises X for his deep love and his cute fiancé, though X corrects that everything but the fiancé part is a misunderstanding, adding that he hopes to find one soon himself. The mood becomes more serious as X and the prince stand by a window, where X comments on the heavy burden the prince must feel to succeed the current king. The prince turns away and solemnly confesses that he hated his older brother. He admits that he felt immense pressure about becoming the crown. The prince continues, describing his older brother as arrogant and selfish, yet possessing the dignity befitting a king, and reveals his brother always treated him like an enemy. He expresses his own self-doubt, feeling he lacks his brother's demeanor and is not suited to be king. X listens, internally reflecting that a king without ability to back up their dignity is merely a fool. With a reassuring smile, X tells the prince it's okay and promises to support him if anything happens, adding that he'll be in the country as long as Alice is. The prince thanks him and immediately asks for help with a specific matter. He wants X to assist in rehabilitating his brother and his followers. The prince explains that his brother's group is severely depressed over their past actions and might even commit suicide if left unattended. X confirms they had been sane until recently. X then explains that this situation is being managed carefully to ensure the prince doesn't abandon his older brother, who has been stripped of his right to the throne. Mentioning this is his father's opinion and that public perception is also a key factor. X agrees to help, but makes it clear that he will not take any responsibility for the outcome, a condition the prince accepts, promising to bear it all himself. X privately thinks that he can't let Alice be endangered, and if there's a suicide due to the broken engagement, he will get his revenge. The prince then asks if there are others who need to be reformed. Sometime later, a girl named Alice approaches X, noticing he seems lost in thought and looks more gloomy than usual. She earnestly offers to do anything to help him, asking him to let her know if there's anything she can do. X thanks her, but gently advises her never to tell another man she would do anything for them, explaining that it could cause them to develop inappropriate feelings. Confused, Alice asks if that's really so. As they walk, X muses on how cute Alice is, and she asks if he also develops such feelings. Alice stops them, her heart thumping, and directly asks X if he has inappropriate thoughts about any other girls. X firmly declares that he has no such feelings for anyone other than Alice. Relieved, Alice says she believes him and playfully calls him a meanie. X tells her that if she wishes, she can keep watching him forever. He then thinks about how cute Alice is and resolves to finish his tasks quickly so he can cherish their time together. Alice asks him what he was thinking about before, but he dismisses it as nothing important. He then turns the conversation by asking for her thoughts on His Highness Mace and Maria. Alice confesses that while the situation was a shock at first, she holds no grudge and is actually grateful because being with X has made her first love come true. X is visibly stunned by her confession of a first love, his heart pounding as he realizes with shock that Alice may have liked him from the very beginning. While he processes this, Alice is feeding him, and he tells her that she is very kind and shouldn't blame herself for anything. X's mind races as he observes Alice's newfound mental strength, attributing it to her growing dependency on him. He clutches his chest, thinking that dependency is the best, and even finds himself wishing she would become more of a Yandra. His imagination briefly pictures a possessive Alice declaring her love and her intent to confine him. Meanwhile, Alice happily enjoys her food, content as long as X is by her side. X later visits his older brother, Mace, who is sitting alone in his room. Mace bitterly asks if X has come to laugh at his downfall. X dismisses the accusation, saying he came to check on Mace after hearing he was feeling down. Mace laments that he did something terrible to Alice, and X informs him that after the engagement was broken, he properly proposed to her. Mace accuses X of taking everything from him. X states that Mace ending up alone is his punishment for making Alice suffer and for trying to belittle others. Mace retorts that he would have been fine losing everything if he could have been with Maria, even at the cost of Alice's suffering. Hearing Mace dismiss his downfall over such a thing causes X's hand to twitch with anger. Mace admits he knew Maria liked someone else, but was too impatient to do anything about it. Seizing the opportunity, X proposes a match between them. If Mace wins, he will get another chance to see Maria, but if he loses, he must do as X says. Mace accepts, determined to win regardless of X's schemes. X internally declares this the perfect chance to settle the score for what Mace did to Alice. At the dueling ground, Mace questions why X is unarmed. X explains it's a handicap because he would win too easily otherwise, and he also bans the use of his own right hand. The rule is simple: the first to make their opponent admit defeat wins. An enraged Mace warns X not to underestimate him. The duel begins, and Mace attacks with a textbook sword swing, which X easily dodges. X notes that while Mace is fast, his predictable patterns are easy to avoid. A panting Mace yells in frustration, asking how X can evade him so perfectly. Mace launches another desperate attack, but X zooms past him effortlessly. X thinks that although Mace is strong, he is many times stronger. Mace screams, unable to understand why he can't land a single hit. X reveals that the secret to his strength is having someone to protect, something Mace wouldn't understand. Mace calls the idea ridiculous, but X disagrees, stating that protecting someone is what makes people truly strong. As Mace yells for him to shut up, X grabs his sword arm and lands a powerful blow. Standing over him, X asks if Mace is satisfied now that he's just a miserable prince. X tells the defeated Mace that he is no longer the crown prince and must make an effort to contribute to the country's development if he dislikes his situation. Mace finally admits his defeat. After the duel, X reflects on his own power, realizing he achieved this crushing victory without using any of the body enhancement magic he possesses from his reincarnation. He wonders how dangerous he would be if he used it, and questions if his strength is a reincarnation bonus that he should perhaps hold back more. The blonde prince approaches, remarking that X's swordsmanship has become even more impressive lately. The prince then thanks X for properly helping Mace, noting that he could see the relief on his brother's face when he lost. X dismisses the thanks, but his internal thoughts reveal a chilling alternative. He was considering assassinating Mace if he ever became a threat to Alice. The prince asks where X is heading next, and X, clenching his fist, replies that he is going to Duke Misty's residence to meet Alice's stepbrother. His final thought is a somber reflection on the idea of holding Alice with hands that have killed people. Duke Misty's dark basement, where a character asks for trust before a figure steps out of the shadows. It is X Lost, who reveals himself to the Duke's adopted son, Gates Misty, a man who clearly resents him. Gates reacts with pure rage and shock upon seeing X. X calmly stands before Gates, who is now imprisoned behind bars, and delivers the grim news that this cell will be his home until he dies. He explains that Gates is no longer of any use because Duke Misty has adopted a new son. Gates cries out in disbelief, convinced that his stepfather would never abandon him like this. But X coldly informs him that he was never truly loved by the Duke's family to begin with. X then presents the trapped Gates with two choices for his fate. He can either be left to die alone in solitude or accept a mercy killing, for which X claims to have the Duke's permission. As X turns to leave, he warns Gates that if he is left alone, he might face an even more miserable end like poisoning or starvation. Overcome with terror, Gates breaks down completely, screaming that he doesn't want to die. Seeing his desperation, X offers him a single path to salvation. Gates must abandon everything he has ever known and become X's tool as payment for his past actions, an offer which the desperate Gates immediately accepts. As his new master, X issues his first command with a stern warning. Gates is to never lay a hand on Alice, or X will kill him on the spot. Gates quickly agrees, sealing his fate of absolute obedience to X's orders. With this dark deal settled, X wonders if he has managed to prevent a future catastrophe. The scene shifts to a well-lit room where Light Charles, the second son of Duke Charles, is having a conversation. He asks X to keep him company until his brother Peter arrives. In a separate moment of negotiation, an agreement is made to arrange a date with someone named Varys. During their conversation, Light mentions that he heard X is engaged to Duke Misty's daughter and admits he is now thinking about getting engaged himself, a thought he never had when his brother was the heir. He then cautiously asks X if he knows a girl named Maria. Light clarifies he was only asking because Maria was the cause of his brother's downfall. The two decide to more informally, agreeing to use each other's first names. Light compliments a cookie, surprised to learn that X baked it himself, and praises him for being skilled with both a sword and in the kitchen. Light confesses that he has been having sleepless nights due to the pressure of becoming the next head of the ducal family. X offers him reassuring advice, encouraging him to take things one step at a time. A grateful Light asks X to continue giving him advice in the future, but their conversation is cut short when a servant announces that Light's brother, Peter, has arrived. Peter Charles bursts into the room, his face filled with rage as he confronts X. X calmly tells Peter that Maria is now working as Alice's maid and has found happiness with another man. Peter explodes, blaming X for his unhappiness and refusing to believe Maria would serve that ugly woman, insisting that Maria should love him. He lunges forward and grabs X, who effortlessly stops the attack by seizing Peter's hand. X threatens to break his hands if he continues to insult Alice with his filthy mouth. X then explains to a seated Light that harsh actions are sometimes necessary for fools who have nothing but pride. An observation light seems to find educational. He warns Peter that while he can object, his life will not be guaranteed if he demeans Alice again. Peter, now terrified, calls X a monster as X approaches him with a message from Maria. X presents a hairpin, explaining that Maria is returning the gift Peter bought for her because she no longer needs it. X adds a cruel lie, telling Peter that Maria was laughing about his poor taste. As Peter collapses in despair, wondering where everything went wrong, X tells him his arrogance and easily broken spirit make him the perfect puppet. He then extends an offer, asking if Peter will agree to become his puppet. Later, X is with Alice in a sunlit garden, reflecting that she is most important person in the world to him and that he must work from the shadows to protect her. Alice asks him what he would do if she did something bad, then answers for herself, saying she would always trust him because she believes he would have a good reason for his actions. Pleased by her unwavering faith, X asks if that means she will always be his. Alice giggles and confirms it, adding that he is also hers and she'll be angry if he ever cheats. Feeling sleepy, X asks for a lap pillow, and Alice happily agrees. As he rests his head on her lap, she gently strokes his hair, remarking that he feels too light and that his hair is beautiful. X feels all his fatigue melt away in this peaceful moment, realizing that this is why he has fought so desperately. With only one target remaining, he looks up at Alice and asks her to go on a date with him. A young woman with blonde hair appears completely flustered as she processes the meaning of a date, realizing with a blush that she and X are about to have one together. Her companions confirm that among common people, their planned meeting is indeed called a date. X suggests that Alice probably hasn't had a chance to get out and relax, and she happily agrees to the outing, but wonders where they are going since she isn't familiar with the local geography. He reassures her that they will simply walk around town together to see various things and have fun. Alice expresses her excitement to go as long as it's with X, while he reveals that he has already taken care of all the arrangements. He has received the Duke's permission and has ensured their security is all set, proposing that he will pick her up on the next holiday, which she agrees to. Later, X returns home and greets his father, a powerful man known as a war demon, who looks imposing but is considered a bit of a muscle brain and prefers to leave boring tasks to his subordinates. X asks his father if he has ever met someone stronger than himself. His father reveals that there are two people he has never been able to defeat, his own father Mobius Lost, and a nemesis he only refers to as that guy. X is surprised by this unexpected development that feels like something out of a shonen manga, especially since the Otome games he knows didn't have events like this. His father explains that he can't discuss the matter now, but X will come to know about it eventually, admitting that he cannot defeat this nemesis. Driven by a desire to protect Alice, X feels he needs more power and clenches his fist, asking his father if they can spar for a little while. The father agrees to a serious match, noting that they cannot fight at the regular training grounds as it might get destroyed, and with the use of physical enhancement magic, he declares the start of their duel. Their spar is intense, filled with the sounds of clashing weapons and swift movements as they trade blows. X is shocked when his father uses a sweeping kick, showing just how serious the fight is as he rolls away with a smirk. The battle continues with X spinning and sliding to evade his father's powerful strikes, and he notes with surprise that his father is coming at him with the intent to kill, prompting him to give it his all in return. The father challenges his son to come at him with full force, wanting to test how far X can go in his current state. After the duel, the training grounds are completely destroyed, and a woman named Viscountess Machina Lost appears, scolding both X and his father for their actions. X apologizes and takes full responsibility, explaining that it was his idea to invite his father for training. The Viscountess observes that her son seems to have changed and has become a completely different person. X declares that he will eliminate anything standing in the way of his love for Alice, and his mother reassures him that no matter what happens, he will always be her son. On their date, X and Alice walk through a town as X explains that the territory they are in was a reward his father accepted for his service in the war. He mentions that his father is deeply devoted to his mother and refused other rewards like a promotion or marriage to the princess, which Alice finds wonderful. As they walk, an older woman recognizes X as the young master and comments on how much he has grown. X thinks Alice looks cute and cool, and he clasps her hand as they decide where to go next. They enter a shop where the owner greets X as the little master. X introduces Alice as his fiancée, and the shopkeeper remarks that the rumors of him taking her from the prince were true. X explains that he couldn't suppress his feelings for his longtime first love and is now very happy. The townspeople congratulate the couple on their engagement, and the shopkeeper offers them a congratulatory gift, refusing to accept any payment. Later, X notices Alice looking at a natural gemstone and decides to buy it for her as a memento of their day. He gives her the gift, saying he thought of it as a substitute until they get official wedding rings. Alice is overjoyed to receive a gift from X and promises to treasure it, then says she would like to give him something in return. Their peaceful day is interrupted by a group of men who have been ordered to beat X up. One of them taunts X for carrying a burden, but X rushes forward protectively and declares that Alice is not a burden. He tells the men to get lost, warning them that if they harm Alice, they will say goodbye to this world. He gives them a count of 10 to surrender or face him, and when one thug lunges for the woman, X swiftly kicks him away, declaring that she is a precious person to him. After the confrontation, X apologizes to Alice for scaring her and says he can only think of one person who holds a grudge against him. He tells her there is one last place he'd like to go and asks her to keep her eyes closed for what they are about to do. Alice agrees, and X gently lifts her into his arms to carry her princess style. He tells her she can open her eyes, revealing they are in the most beautiful flower field in the area, leaving Alice amazed by the incredible view. Alice asks how long he plans to carry her and playfully asks him not to treat her like a child. X offers to set her down, promising to carry her like a princess again later. When she asks to be treated like an adult instead, he leans in close, asking if she wants him to treat her even more like an adult, which leaves her flustered and speechless. X then gently embraces Alice, telling her he loves everything about her, including her cute sides and the moments she endures hardship. Alice looks up at him and asks if it is selfish of her to not want to go home. She confesses that she also wants to be by his side, and as they hug tightly, X vows to never let go of her hand, promising to always be by her side no matter how many decades pass or even if he is reborn. This moment strengthens his resolve to become stronger so that he can protect Alice from anyone who might interfere. The scene then cuts to a restaurant where a smiling young man with light-colored hair holds a glass and greets X, saying that it has been a while and that he has been waiting for him. That X enters a bustling establishment where patrons are dining, and he approaches a merchant's son, known as Marquez Stereo, noting that it has been a while since they last met. As X sits down, Marquez questions his presence and brings up recent rumors about a merchant involved in human trafficking, subtly probing to see what X knows. Suddenly, X shows a look of disgust and clutches his mouth as if ill, having seemingly fallen for a trap by spilling a drink all over his white shirt. Marquez reveals his scheme, asking with a smirk how X is still conscious after being given a large dose of a potent poison. As X questions who they are, Marquez and his associates declare themselves to be Prometheus, a group destined to change the world, while unsheathing a blade and making it clear that no help will arrive. However, X calmly stands up and reveals that poison has no effect on him due to his body-enhancing magic, admitting that he knew about their pathetic plan from the very beginning and was only acting tired. The attackers are stunned that he can still move, and their leader furiously orders his men to kill him. What follows is a maelstrom of action as X effortlessly dispatches the attackers, offering them a chance to surrender before continuing his assault. With swift kicks and powerful throws, he sends bodies flying through the air and crashing through windows, all while calmly stating he's in a good mood today. Even as the remaining men try to regroup, X moves silently and continues to take them down without any trouble. As the fight settles, X quietly wonders if his actions to protect a girl named Alice have altered events. Recalling that Marquez was never such a dangerous person in the original story, a blonde-haired man arrives, observing the chaotic aftermath X has created and noting that he was worried X might cause trouble. The man identifies a dangerous drug called Prometheus, which is named after the very organization X just fought, and is known for temporarily boosting physical abilities at the cost of severe addiction and hallucinations. He then makes a request for X's help in eradicating this drug from their country, emphasizing that it's a serious problem and that Alice's safety is at stake. He explains that by taking on this illegal organization, X will become a secret hero whose new fame will spread throughout the town. This popularity will then act as a shield to protect a woman named Miss Misty and ultimately benefit the entire nation. though X internally reaffirms that he is only doing this for Alice. Later, in a grand room, the blonde man, Prince Rince, asks X about his familiarity with the neighboring Salver kingdom. He describes it as a friendly country with a long-standing relationship, serving as a major fishing nation and a vital trade gateway, but he warns that its political situation is currently very unstable. The previous king was assassinated, and the new crown prince has been unable to stabilize the country, leading to a rise in illegal drugs and human trafficking, all orchestrated by the very same organization, Prometheus. Prince Rince reveals he is heading to the Salver kingdom in 2 days under the king's orders, and as X tries to leave to avoid getting involved, Rince grabs him and stops him. The mission is to uncover the source of the drug and eliminate its import routes by having X or his brother investigate by courting the 2 princesses of Salver. The scene then introduces Princess Manaria Salver and her younger sister, Princess Cynthia, who greet their visitors. X introduces himself, and Princess Manaria recognizes him as the rumored knight from stories spreading in neighboring countries about a hero who saved a duchess from an evil prince. This leads to a light-hearted moment where Rince, the evil prince from the rumors, tells them not to shift the conversation to him, while X and Manaria playfully acknowledge his title. Princess Cynthia appears very nervous around the newcomers, and X kindly reassures her that they are there to build a friendship and should take their time getting to know one another. As Manaria observes that Rince and Cynthia seem to be getting along, Rince suddenly makes a bold proposal, asking Cynthia to come to his country as a consort anytime she is willing, admitting that his spontaneous offer has ruined the courtship lines he had prepared. While X speaks privately with Princess Manaria, Rince watches Cynthia and confesses that it was love at first sight for him. He finds her appealing because she seems like she would have a cute reaction to being teased, and as he holds her hand, he declares that even if it's a political marriage, he would much prefer to be with someone he genuinely likes. As the group prepares for an evening party, X forms his own plan, intending to gather information on Prometheus before slipping away to trace the source of the drug and take them down alone. Prince Rince advises him to be careful, but X confidently states that no opponent is a match for him, as he is determined to finish the mission quickly and return to Alice. The stage is set for the evening party, where nobles involved in the drug trade are likely to be present, and the mission is about to begin. A message is displayed from X Dano, who is the son of the highly skilled Vector Dano, revealing his plan to visit a party that evening with Count Ferdit and present a special gift. A man who trained with Vector Dano smirks with anticipation for the enjoyable night ahead as he recalls his old master's incredible skill. Later at a grand party filled with chattering guests, a royal announcement begins, capturing everyone's attention with practiced skill. X is seen standing in the crowd as it is officially declared that the second princess, Cynthia Salver, is now engaged to Prince Rince Landry, the second prince of the Landry Kingdom. Following the announcement, X approaches Count Ferdit and greets him warmly. X introduces himself as X Lost from the Viscount House of Lost, explaining he is there with Prince Rince. The Count, holding a glass of wine, replies that he came to the party alone, leaving his wife at home. X then brings up the new business that he has heard the Count recently started, and his tone shifts dramatically. With a cold expression, X warns Count Ferdit to withdraw from his business venture if he cares about his family, telling him his life could end tonight if he refuses. The Count reacts with anger and confusion, shouting that X is speaking nonsense and demanding to know what he is talking about. Seeing the Count's furious response, X calmly sighs to himself, realizing that his attempt to persuade the man has failed. In a flashback, Count Ferdit is seen outdoors conducting his business with a group of men. He hands a payment to a bald man, who questions if it is wise for a nobleman to be seen dealing with them so openly. The Count reassures him, explaining that with everyone distracted by the princess's engagement, nobody will interfere, and he has few people he can trust for the job anyway. Suddenly, X appears behind the men, startling them as he agrees with one of them that they are all just small fry. When one of the men aggressively asks who he is, X smiles calmly and replies that he is merely the son of a passing knight commander before swiftly striking the man down. The bald man scoffs at X, calling him a foolish noble kid with an unnecessary sense of justice. X's expression becomes dangerously serious as he tells the men he knows his actions are a waste of time. He states that because of them, he is losing precious moments he could be spending with his beloved Alice, and he coldly tells them all to just disappear. Taking this as a threat, the remaining men decide to attack him all at once. The scene explodes into action with sounds of intense fighting as X effortlessly battles his opponents, sending them flying with powerful strikes. The bald man attempts to flee, but is quickly cornered by X. In shock, the man recognizes X as the son of someone he calls Hercules, and impossibly questions how he was able to get there. He mutters that if the father is a monster, then the son must be one as well. X ignores the comment and instead asks about the extent of the man's influence and a group known as Prometheus, noting that he never expected to hear his father's name, Viscount Lost, in such a place. Without waiting for a full answer, X dodges an attack and lands a decisive blow on the man, thanking him for the information he provided. The ground is now littered with the defeated bodies of the Count's associates as X glances over the scene he has created. X sighs with frustration, thinking that this whole situation is becoming a hassle and a distraction from his real desire, which is to be with Alice. He reflects on his father, Mobius Lost, and his lifelong nemesis, realizing that Prometheus is the enemy his father was never able to defeat. Back at the royal party, X presents the captured criminals to King Salvar on behalf of Prince Rince, explaining they were dealing a drug called Prometheus, and that their capture is a gift to celebrate the engagement. The king praises X for his excellent work. King Salvar is deeply impressed with X for single-handedly dealing with such a major threat to the kingdom and offers him a noble title if he agrees to stay in Salvar. X politely declines the generous offer, explaining that he must return to his own country where his beloved fiancée is waiting for him. Prince Rince accepts X's decision and extends a warm invitation for him and his fiancée to visit any time in the future. X announces his immediate departure, stating that he will run back and should arrive by morning before vanishing in a blur of motion. X's only thought is to see Alice again as he rushes home. His incredibly fast return shocks everyone, who wonder how he could have possibly traveled from the Salvar kingdom so quickly. Alice is also surprised to see him, questioning how he came back from the neighboring country when it was supposed to be his day off. X simply explains that he ran because he wanted to see her, mentioning that he is faster than any carriage. X pulls Alice into a tight embrace, telling her how painful it was to be separated from her for even a single day. Alice hugs him back just as tightly, confessing that she was also very lonely without him. She admits that she never realized how long a day could feel or how painful it would be to be apart from him. X gently caresses her cheek, saying that while he has much to tell her, there is something more important to do first. Holding her face in his hands, X looks lovingly into Alice's eyes and softly says, "I'm back." Alice looks up at him with a gentle smile and warmly welcomes him home. Later, while they are sitting together, Alice asks X about Prince Rince's engagement. X confirms the news, adding that because rumors about him and Alice were circulating, no one paid her much attention at the party. Alice shyly admits that she was a little worried that X might have become interested in one of the two princesses in the Salvar kingdom. X is touched by her cute worry and playfully asks how she could ever think he would be interested in anyone other than her. Overcome by her adorable, flustered expression, he teases that he might just eat her cute cheek, causing Alice to blush even more. Changing the subject, Alice says she has something important to discuss and asks X where they should hold their wedding. While X considers grand venues, Alice clarifies that she doesn't care about a fancy ceremony. She simply wants to become his wife, preferring a small, modest wedding with only their closest family. Overjoyed by her sincere feelings, X declares that she is the best and happily agrees with her perfect idea that a man wishes to honor X for his recent service in eliminating the group called Prometheus and successfully closing off their import route, an achievement he calls immeasurable. He tells X not to avoid the responsibility, but X insists that all the credit should go to Prince Rince. The man then offers X a reward, asking him to name what he wants. With a cheerful grin, X simply asks to be allowed to go home now, adding that the best reward for him is to be left alone. A younger man with light hair laughs and tells him that is not going to happen. The older man explains that X and Rince are destined to become the foundation of the country, so X's achievements must be made public to strengthen that foundation. In response, X makes a bold request, asking that the throne be given to Prince Rince at the same time the prince graduates from the academy. X confidently expresses that there is no need to worry because Prince Rince is a genius. He continues by stating his own plan to join the knights after graduation and quickly rise to the position of Knight Commander. The man listens to this proposal, tapping his fingers thoughtfully on a table as he notes how fearless X is to want to retire in just 1 year. Suddenly struck by an idea, the man decides to grant X the honor of creating a new, independent order of knighthood and declares that X will be its commander. X immediately voices his respectful decline of the offer, looking troubled by the proposition. The man clarifies that this new order will function as X's own private army, serving as a powerful trump card for the country with Rince as the future king. He makes it an official order that X must obey, emphasizing that this is necessary to completely eliminate the threat of Prometheus. X clenches his fist in frustration, arguing that the country initiated the conflict and he was merely following orders, but the man dismisses his point, stating that it doesn't change the fact that X was the one who acted. Smiling, the man asks if commanding a new order of knights isn't a good enough reward. X, looking annoyed, reminds him that he was meant to receive a reward, not be burdened with more troublesome responsibilities. He is then instructed to gather the members for his new order by the time he graduates. Overwhelmed and exhausted, X rolls on the floor while being told he can design the uniforms as he likes, and will even be provided with the best tailor for wedding dresses. X finally agrees, but only on the condition that he receives a decent salary and that his new duties do not interfere with his time with a woman named Alice. Later, X is with his father when he's asked if he heard about the bandits he captured while searching for Prince Rince's fiancée. When X says he hasn't, his father asks if he knows anyone by the name of Prometheus, causing X to flinch and demand to know where he heard that name. His father explains he heard it from the bandits, who are the people behind the recent troubles. He reveals that the man he once fought and couldn't defeat is part of that group. X looks disappointed that his father lost, but his father clenches his fist and clarifies that the man let him live, calling it a reward for his entertainment. X's father declares that this is his problem to solve, and he has no intention of involving his children. X calmly replies that their mother would be sad if he fought, and that he has no intention of dying, which visibly distresses his father. Realizing he must do something, X asks if the opponent used magic. His father confirms the man used physical enhancements like theirs, and perhaps even more than one type of magic, which is not normal. A flashback shows a one-armed man wielding black flames, and his father describes how the man seemed to be growing magic within himself, and would often talk to himself, as if conversing with someone inside him. X takes charge, telling his father that if he is prepared to fight to the death, then he will fight and win instead, promising a complete victory. He then reminds his father that as the Knight Commander, he is meant to protect his family, and making his wife cry would make him unfit to be a. X declares himself to be Alice's knight, stating he will not allow his father to die and make her sad. In a brighter scene, Alice points out that everyone seems to be looking at X. X playfully suggests that everyone is simply captivated by Alice's cuteness, causing her to blush. Their moment is interrupted when a girl approaches and mentions rumors about someone fighting dark organizations, thanking a lost Sand for saving her friend from being trafficked. More people join in, praising Lost Sand for saving so many people, while X sighs, wishing Alice didn't have to know about the dangerous things he does. Alice reveals that she heard about these events because her own brother was there. Worried, she holds X's arm and asks him not to be reckless, adding that Rin said he would become a secret hero. X thinks to himself that he only ever wanted to be Alice's personal hero. Alice acknowledges that people have been saved because of his actions, but expresses her fear of something happening to him. Touched by her sincere worry, X feels a sense of regret, remembering that a knight should not bring grief to those he has sworn to protect. He holds her hand, looking into her eyes as he promises that he will never leave her side and that they will always be together, his words flustering her. He firms his resolve, determined to use his power to protect the one he loves. X wants Alice to meet his parents who have insisted on seeing her soon. Alice happily agrees to go, bringing a wave of relief to X who thanks her. He explains that his parents will probably want to talk about their future and expresses some worry because it has been a long time since she has seen them. Meanwhile, a woman thinks about Alice marrying into the Viscount House of Lost and becoming her son's wife. Alice reassures the worried X that everything is fine. She then reveals that she has been thinking about her future with X for a very long time and is fully prepared for what's to come, which makes her happy. In fact, she has been daydreaming about all the things she wants to do once she is married to him. X is pleased by her enthusiasm and suggests they work together to make her ideal newlywed life a reality. Alice secretly wonders if her dream of a newlywed life involving naked aprons will come true, a thought that makes X a bit tense. A fantasy then plays out where Alice possessively embraces X, declaring that he belongs only to her. The fantasy continues with Alice vowing they will be together forever, but it is revealed that this is actually X's daydream. He secretly wishes she would act like a dominant and obsessive Yandere, but feels it's impossible because his own love for her is already so intense. Snapping back to reality, he calls out to Alice and asks a hypothetical question about how she would feel if they were to get married the very next day. Alice replies that while she would like to enjoy their engagement period a little longer, she would be overjoyed to become his wife so soon. Alice adds that she can't wait to be his wife and is also genuinely happy about meeting his parents. X thanks her, touched by her pure feelings and feeling a bit guilty for his own secret fantasies. He reassures her not to worry about his parents, staring at her intently as he tells her that as long as she keeps smiling, everything will be perfectly fine. He then admits that he feels a little uncomfortable with the thought of his own father getting too close to her. Alice smiles and confesses she feels the same way about him getting along with her mother. Alice clarifies that she also feels jealous and has mixed feelings when thinking about X with her mother. They both agree that to avoid feeling jealous, they should be more openly affectionate and lovey-dovey with each other. They hold hands tightly as they confess their love for one another. Upon arriving at a grand estate, they are warmly greeted by X's parents, Lord Vector and Lady Machina. Lord Vector compliments Alice, noting she has grown into a beautiful woman, while Lady Machina kindly tells her not to be nervous. Lord Vector expresses his surprise at their engagement, but adds that he would be delighted to have her as his daughter-in-law. Alice formally introduces herself and says she will now call him father-in-law, a suggestion he happily accepts. Lady Machina remarks that she was surprised Alice accepted X's aggressive proposal. Blushing, Alice explains that she was happy because she genuinely liked X. Lady Machina smiles warmly at the clear love between them and invites Alice to visit more often. Lady Machina then offers to teach Alice everything she needs to know to be the daughter-in-law of the Viscount Lost, again telling her not to be nervous. She playfully teases her husband, saying that unlike him and his devotion to his job, X is sensitive to the subtle needs of the one he loves. Lord Vector looks shocked and asks if he is really that bad. Machina assures her husband she accepts him as he is, then turns to Alice with a smile, advising that it is important to be a little tough sometimes. X interjects, asking his mother not to tell Alice anything unnecessary. Machina leans in to explain that because X is often forced to work hard behind the scenes, it's Alice's job to prevent him from overdoing it. She then whispers a secret weapon to Alice, a phrase that has a high probability of stopping X when he's pushing himself too hard. What's more important, me or your job? Nearby, X quietly asks his father if he's ever heard that phrase, and his father admits it has been used on him twice, which is why he takes time off when he is not feeling well. This gives X the idea of pretending to be sick just so Alice will come and take care of him. Lord Vector grows serious and explains that for generations, the men of the Lost family have possessed overwhelming strength and a love for fighting, which has sometimes led them to abandon the women in their lives. Since X is destined to become a knight commander like his ancestors, it will be Alice's crucial job as his wife to bring him back from the battlefield. Alice looks determined and promises she will do her best. Lady Machina then kindly asks Alice to call her mother-in-law and to take good care of X. Alice agrees, feeling relieved but still a bit nervous after the intense conversation. Later, Alice clenches her fist with resolve and declares her intention to do her best to become a bride worthy of X. X thanks her but gently tells her not to try too hard, assuring her she is already more than attractive enough as she is. He then affectionately presses his forehead against hers. Sometime after, X notices Alice seems to be in a much better mood than usual and asks her why. Looking at her reflection, Alice explains that meeting his parents made her feel like she is finally moving forward. She felt that while X had done so much for her, she had been unable to do anything to help him in return. She expresses her happiness at finally knowing there is something she can do to support him. This makes X wonder what he could possibly ask of her, since anything she does for him already feels like a reward, and his thoughts drift to the idea of children's names. Alice overhears his muttering and gasps at the thought of having children with X. Realizing he spoke aloud, X clarifies he wasn't sure about having kids right after getting married. Alice begins to imagine their future children, picturing a beautiful daughter like herself and a cool, handsome son who takes after X. X modestly claims he isn't very good looking, but Alice passionately refutes this. She declares that he is incredibly cool and just like a prince on a white horse from a fairy tale. Touched by her heartfelt praise, X makes a solemn promise to her. He vows that whenever she finds herself in trouble or in a bind, he will come dashing to her rescue, just like a prince on a white horse. In another location, an older man instructs for a letter to be sent to the Viscount Loss residence. When a butler asks if the letter is for Sir Vector, the man says no. The letter is addressed to X, and the man refers to X as his grandson in a grand room. A man with white hair asks a young man named X about his future plans, having heard he will join the Knights after graduating from school. X confirms this is true, his expression serious as he quietly reflects that half a year has already passed since the night he proposed to his beloved Alice. The scene shifts to them sitting with tea, where the older man reveals he invited X because he had a question for him, while X takes a sip from his cup, his thoughts drifting to flirting and being intimate with Alice. The older man, who is X's grandfather, then asks if X likes children, and X calmly replies that he doesn't like them as much as others do. Hearing this, his grandfather asks if X would be willing to do him a favor, though X cautiously states that his agreement depends entirely on what the favor is. X then inquires if he has the right to refuse the request, as he looks away with a troubled expression, admitting he doesn't want to spend less time with his fiancée, and he puts his teacup down with a soft clink. His grandfather stands by the window looking out at the trees and explains that X has powers he may not know how to use, and he asks him to please share his knowledge. The grandfather suggests that X has experienced a different world and may even know about things like reincarnation, insisting that this is a special favor he could only ask of him and pleading for his help. X lets out a heavy sigh and finally agrees to the task, but makes it clear he will only do it for the specified amount of time, a condition his grandfather happily accepts. With the matter settled, the grandfather presents X with a magnificent sword in its scabbard, leaving X to question what it is. X asks why the sword isn't given to his father instead, but his grandfather explains that his father is clumsy and not a good match for it. He reveals the sword is a family treasure named Zero, with the power to nullify all magic, and believes X, being dexterous like his mother, would be a perfect match for it. The grandfather adds that the sword's true power awakens based on the feelings of its owner, and that a pure, straightforward heart will grant X immense strength. As X holds the shining sword, he feels a strange pressure emanating from it. The grandfather observes that the blade has become lighter, a sign that it is responding to X's feelings, and he tells his grandson to take the family treasure with him. Touched by this gesture, X calls out to his grandfather, who smiles warmly and says he doesn't mind, as he couldn't simply ignore his adorable grandson who has been having a hard time lately. A grateful X bows deeply to thank him, and they then proceed outside where 3 young children are waiting to begin their lesson. One of the students, a girl with twin pigtails named Rhea, explains to their new teacher that she feels she can't control the magic that unconsciously pours out of her. Another student, a boy named Gulliver, questions if X is truly strong enough to teach them, confidently stating that he himself is quite powerful, but X calmly replies that he is stronger than all of them. X learns that the third student, Monica, possesses hypnotic magic much like Maria's, and he decides that the best way to teach them is through practical application. X proposes that they start by practicing hypnosis on him, which surprises the students. Monica wonders what will happen if their teacher actually falls under her spell, but X simply encourages her to give it a try. Monica attempts to use her magic on him, but he remains completely unaffected. The students look confused as Monica expresses her certainty that she used her magic correctly. X then explains that hypnotic magic doesn't work on him and tells her to try it with more force. As they talk, Rhea suddenly cries out as her uncontrolled magic flares up beside her. X reassures a worried Rhea that it's okay for her to use her magic freely so she can learn to control it, promising that no one will get hurt there. Finally, he turns his attention to Gulliver, announcing that they will train together in combat without magic. A confident Gulliver tells his relaxed-looking teacher not to worry and dashes forward to attack. Gulliver is immediately knocked to the floor with a thud, and X stands over him, advising that while Gulliver's characteristic is speed, His attacks won't be effective unless he moves around much more. From the sidelines, Monica watches in awe, noting that their teacher is very relaxed while blocking all of Gulliver's attacks without using any magic. Rhea adds that she has been trying to use hypnosis on X multiple times during the fight, but the magic keeps getting nullified. Gulliver, now panting and exhausted, struggles to keep fighting. With tears in his eyes, X asks him if he wants to stop or continue, but Gulliver tearfully insists he is not crying and defiantly shouts that he will keep going. Filled with a new sense of determination, Gulliver declares that he will absolutely land a hit on his sensei. X smiles at his student's spirit and encourages him to keep trying, while also reminding Rhea not to hesitate to use her magic. After the training session ends, a tired Gulliver leans over to catch his breath. When X asks if he is okay, Gulliver says it's nothing to worry about and promises his teacher that he will definitely hit him next time, before bowing and thanking him for his continued support. The other students also thank X, and later he is seen at his desk writing notes about their progress. He concludes that Gulliver's speed would be best suited for a light weapon like a rapier. Rhea needs to develop an understanding of her power, and Monica is constantly trying to use her hypnosis magic on him. While working, X finds his thoughts turning to Alice, wishing he could hear her voice and had an easy way to contact her in this different world. He muses that he must do his best so this new teaching job doesn't cut into his time with her, and at the very least, he wishes they could feel each other's presence when they are nearby. Meanwhile, on a starry night, Alice stands on a balcony when her maid, Maria, approaches and tells her she will catch a cold. Maria playfully asks if Alice was thinking of lost San again, and Alice denies it with a sigh, though she admits that being unable to see him for even a little while makes her anxious. Maria dismisses her worries as needless, reminding her that she will see him tomorrow and should rest soon. She then teases that lost San would make a fuss if he saw dark circles on Alice's pretty face, revealing that X is the cause of her sleep-deprived state. Blushing, Alice admits that she wants to look as cute as possible for him, and she eagerly wishes for tomorrow to come sooner. A close-up of a hand flinching away from a plate of dessert as a question is asked about whether X is a teacher. The scene then shows Alice and X sitting together on a comfortable-looking sofa, where Alice explains that her grandfather asked her to teach magic to some children once a week. Curious, X inquires whether the students are boys or girls. Alice clasps her hands together with a worried expression, confessing that she has been feeling uneasy lately during the times they cannot see each other. She expresses her fear that X might meet another girl while they are apart and admits that this feeling is strange because she truly believes in him. X, looking at her with a serious expression, answers her earlier question, revealing that there is one boy and two girls in the group she teaches. With a concerned look on her face, Alice tells X that she worries about him. X smiles gently and reassures her, saying that he knows exactly how she feels because he also has moments of worry despite having complete faith in Alice. He then rises from the sofa and moves towards her, mentioning that he was just getting ready to give her something special. X leans in closer to Alice and softly asks her to keep her eyes closed for just a second. A slightly puzzled Alice agrees and closes her eyes as instructed. He then presents a gift to her, telling her to open it and see what is inside while admitting that it is a little embarrassing for him because he made it himself. As Alice looks at the gift, X explains that he wanted them to have something that would make them feel connected to each other, even when they are apart. Alice gazes at the present and begins to wonder if the pendant X wears also contains something similar, perhaps a picture of her, creating a matching set for them. X confirms her suspicions with a warm smile and opens his own locket, revealing a small picture of Alice tucked safely inside. He tells her that even when he cannot see her, just having this picture with him makes him feel like she is by his side and brings him a great deal of comfort. He then asks if she is okay with this gift, offering to take it back if she does not like it. A bright, happy smile spreads across Alice's face as she tells X that she is more than happy with the gift, especially because he prepared it with her in mind. Blushing slightly, she admits that while it is a bit embarrassing, she would love to keep it. As she holds her own locket, she notices that there is something carved into the metal. The locket is shown in a close-up, revealing a beautifully engraved message that says, X pledges eternal love to Alice. Alice then asks what is written on his locket, and he playfully asks if she really wants to know. Overwhelmed with emotion, Alice's eyes fill with tears as she says there is no need to tell her because she feels she already understands. It is revealed that the inscription on Alice's locket reads, "Alice's eternal love for X." Feeling incredibly happy, Alice tells X that his requests are now forbidden because they make her too joyful. Instead, she offers to grant him one request of his choosing as her way of giving something back to him. Alice thoughtfully wonders what she could possibly get for him, while X expresses that any gift from her would be a treasure. He silently thinks to himself how incredibly cute she is and how much he wants to take her home. Alice then prompts him to make his request, and he replies that there is one thing he would like to ask of her. X reveals that his request is for Alice to wear a particular outfit that he has in mind. Without any hesitation, Alice agrees and says she will do anything that X wants her to do. The story then jumps forward in time by 1 week. 1 week later, Alice is seen wearing an elegant floral kimono, and she wonders what kind of dress it is. A maid stands beside her as X explains that it is a type of dress from Eastern countries called a kimono. He thinks to himself, wondering if the kimono was brought into their world by a reincarnated person or if it is an original design. Alice turns to the maid and thanks her for helping her get dressed. X gazes at Alice with admiration, telling her that the kimono looks very good on her and that her natural charm shines through even when she is wearing exotic clothing. Alice comments that kimono is a name for a dress. X then has a private thought, exclaiming to himself how amazing she looks and how he wishes he could take her home right then and there. Alice asks X if he wanted to see her wearing a kimono, and he admits that he did just a little bit. He explains that he didn't request a men's version because his main desire was to see her in one. He then appears wearing his own kimono, thanks her, and mentions there are other clothes he would like her to wear as he gestures toward a pile of her garments. X slides another box toward Alice, who looks surprised. He tells her that after the kimono, he would like her to wear the item in this box, describing it as a classic one-piece dress that is perfect for beautiful girls like her. Upon opening the box, Alice is visibly shocked and blushes deeply when she sees what she thinks is underwear. X, however, smiles and clarifies that it is actually a swimsuit, which is an outfit meant for swimming or playing in the water. Alice, still flustered, thinks to herself that it is a very lewd item. Still blushing, Alice asks X if he is interested in seeing her skin. X puts the box down with a clatter and confidently confirms that he is, of course, interested. He continues by explaining that absolutely everything about Alice is of interest to him, and he looks forward to the future where he might eventually see all of her. Looking up at him, Alice asks if he is thinking about something lewd, realizing that his feelings might mirror her own. X leans closer and gently clarifies that he does not consider his thoughts about their future together to be lewd. X admits that he thinks about Alice so much that he sometimes cannot help but have those kinds of thoughts as well. He then asks her if this disappoints her. Alice quickly shakes her head and reassures him that it is not true at all and that he has not disappointed her in any way. Alice fidgets a little before confessing that she has also had lewd thoughts about X, though just a little bit. She then asks if her confession disappoints him. X tenderly touches her face and tells her, "No way," adding that her honesty actually makes him very happy. Later, as X walks down a corridor with the maid, she mentions that she did not know kimonos existed in their world and asks him how he managed to get one. X simply replies that he used a secret route. The maid, who has a romantic interest named Varys, asks X if he could use his secret route to get a kimono for her too, as she wants to show it to him. X smiles confidently and remarks that he and Alice are in love, after all, implying their connection is special. The maid becomes flustered and insists that his relationship is beside the point. X tells the maid that it would become a problem if she started to rely on him for such things. He then changes the topic and asks if there has been any unusual activity related to Otome games recently. He reminds her to continue looking after Alice while he is away. The maid reflects on how affectionate X and Alice are with each other, even though they are not yet married, and knows she will continue to serve Alice after their wedding. She then wonders aloud if the young lady feels the same way about their relationship, which prompts X to ask what she means. The maid explains that she recently overheard Alice talking in her sleep. A flashback shows Alice peacefully sleeping while murmuring X, "I love you." The maid concludes that even in her dreams, Alice was passionately in love with him. A glimpse into X's thoughts reveals his deep longing to be with Alice. He fantasizes about a terrible storm that would block the road, forcing her to stay the night with him because he finds it hard to wait until they are married. X tells the maid that he is counting on her to look after Alice while he is gone. He then says he is leaving and explains that he doesn't want Alice to see them talking together and get the wrong idea. As he departs, he gives the maid a stern warning not to touch Alice, revealing his overprotective nature, which causes the maid to sigh about his behavior. The maid then mentions that there is a story that has become quite popular lately and asks X if he has heard it. When he replies that he has not, she says that if he doesn't know, then she doesn't care to tell him, adding that he will surely hear about it sooner or later anyway. X calls out to her, asking what story she is referring to, but the maid continues to walk away without giving him an answer. A young boy with his hair tied back is seen lying on the ground while looking up and asking his teacher, Sensei, if he is a nobleman. Inside a building, a group of children gathers around the tall, dark-haired Sensei, filled with curiosity about his life. One girl asks if he has a fiancé, while another wonders if this fiancé is as muscle-headed as he is strong. Sensei responds with a light tap on her head, playfully asking who she's calling muscle-headed. The children then ask if he likes his fiancé, and he replies with a warm smile that she is the best partner he could ever wish for, making the children sigh about how much he loves her. This reminds one girl of a popular book called Tale of the Knight. She excitedly explains that it's a wonderful story where a knight rescues a royal's fiancé from a prince after a false accusation and makes her his own princess. The tale has become very famous, spreading even to a princess in a nearby country, and it is rumored to be based on a true story from their own land. The girls are shocked to hear this, beginning to see the story as a real-life fairy tale. One of the students asks Sensei if he knows anything about the story since it happened in their country, and he pauses to think. He then smiles and admits that although he doesn't know if it is connected to that particular story, he has also stolen someone's fiancé before, leaving the children stunned and puzzled by the word stolen. The children whisper among themselves, amazed by this news and agreeing that it makes sense for someone as impressive as Sensei. The boy with the tied-back hair looks at him with sparkling eyes and asks what she is like, guessing she must be beautiful because she was engaged to a prince. Sensei confirms that he took her from the prince to be his own fiancé, and that they are very happy together now. The children's curiosity grows as they spot a strangely shaped necklace around Sensei's neck. He pulls it out and shows them that it is a locket pendant, an accessory for keeping a picture of a loved one inside. When he opens it, the children look in awe at the photo of the beautiful woman inside, then issues a gentle warning, looking particularly at a boy named Gulliver, explaining that he gets very protective when it comes to his fiancée, Alice. He clenches his fist and adds that he won't hold back if they even think about her, which frightens the children into promising they will leave his fiancée alone. Changing the subject, the boy with the ponytail asks Sensei if he is going to become the knight commander someday. Sensei agrees that it's true, and the boy immediately declares that he wants to be one of Sensei's subordinates. The other children excitedly join in, saying they also want to work under him, even if they can't become knights themselves. The boy boldly claims he will become stronger than anyone else if he works for Sensei, a statement Sensei thinks might be true. Sensei promises that if they still feel the same way as adults, he will gladly welcome them, and the children cheer loudly, vowing to do their best. Later, the scene shifts to Sensei, now in a uniform and called X, talking with a white-haired man named Rince. They are looking over designs for a high-quality wedding dress that X has created. Rince glances at the sketches and comments that X seems capable of doing anything, impressed that he drew them himself. X brushes off the compliment, saying he has difficulties too, and then asks Rince for advice on how to be like a prince from a story. Rince believes X is already like a storybook character, explaining that while he looks normal on a horse, X looks like a true prince on a white steed, while a monstrous creature is comically imagined behind Rince. Their conversation turns serious as they discuss the king's request to form a new knight order. Rince points out that X's significant status means he cannot be ignored in this matter. Feeling annoyed by the obligation, X jokes that maybe he should just create his own country. He quickly dismisses the idea, however, because he does not want to burden his beloved Alice with the difficult role of a queen, preferring to protect her current happy life. Rince calmly tells X that if he were truly serious about building a nation, he would gladly help him pursue his ambition. They then share a laugh, jokingly calling each other black-hearted bastards. Just as X is about to leave to meet Alice, Rince stops him to ask for a serious favor. He needs X to serve as a bodyguard for a woman named Cynthia, who is visiting for her pre-engagement announcement. This is because there have been a series of recent attacks targeting magic users. Rince admits that he uses magic and could be a target, which makes X realize that he could be in danger too. X puts his head in his hands, frustrated that he is constantly being dragged into complicated problems. Despite his unwillingness, he agrees to be the bodyguard, driven by the thought that doing nothing could potentially put Alice in harm's way. The chapter concludes on a dark and stormy night as the weather worsens. A person in a cloak is seen running through the rain in a panic. Suddenly, a terrifying, shadowy monster with a single glowing eye appears directly in their path, and the scene cuts away as the creature lunges forward to attack. A conversation unfolds about Lady Cynthia's potential marriage to Prince Rince right after their graduation. Prince Rince is seen sitting with X and Alice on a luxurious couch, where he playfully suggests they could all hold a joint wedding ceremony together. Alice chuckles at the idea, remarking that one main star is more than enough for such an event, and Rince cheerfully agrees with her sentiment. Suddenly, a thoughtful Cynthia interrupts by addressing X as Sir Knight, just as a small, childlike version of X thinks to himself that he wants to hurry home to get cozy with Alice. The peaceful moment is shattered when an unseen magical attack occurs, and X instantly springs into action, drawing an ornate sword and moving to shield Alice and Rince from harm. Rince worriedly asks if it is an attack, and X confirms that it certainly felt like magic was just used nearby. X holds his gleaming blade and explains that it is a family heirloom with the special ability to nullify magic. A concerned Rince questions if this power would also cancel out X's own body-enhancing magic, but X reassures him that everything is alright. He clarifies that the sword's nullification power has a unique condition. It only works against others if the user possesses an unshakable heart, which allows the wielder to use their own abilities without any interference. With his sword sheathed at his side, X reveals that it is a powerful weapon designed to kill humans who use magic, and because of this, he does not intend to use it frequently. He looks confidently towards Alice and declares that his heart and his feelings for her are more unshakable than anything in the world, so the sword's condition is no issue for him at all. Rince smiles warmly at this, saying he feels the same way and only wants to use his power to protect Alice. As Rince agrees that this sentiment is just like X, Alice listens with a gentle smile and a soft laugh. Rince then happily observes that he and Sir Knight seem to be very close friends, a statement that Rince agrees with, but X immediately denies. X looks away and mutters about their supposed closeness, leading Rince to express that he would prefer it if they could be best friends. X stands coolly in a doorway and states that friendships between men are fine as long as they are in moderation and not overly clingy, a response that makes Rince happy to hear. The mood shifts when Alice gently reminds Cynthia that she was about to ask X a question before the magical attack interrupted them. Rince expresses his surprise that Cynthia is taking an interest in another person, while a slightly embarrassed Cynthia formally requests that Sir Knight arrange a meeting with his fiancée, as she wishes to meet her and become her friend. X carefully considers her request, thinking to himself that refusing would be rude, and that Cynthia doesn't seem like the type of person who would ever bring harm to Alice. With a kind smile, he agrees to arrange the meeting, and a delighted Cynthia thanks him very much for his understanding. Later, the two women meet, and Cynthia introduces herself as Cynthia Salver, the second princess of the Salver Kingdom, while Alice introduces herself as Alice Misty of the Misty Duchy. Cynthia's heart thumps in her chest as she meets the lovely Alice for the first time, and Alice offers her a warm and pleasant greeting. At a tea party, Alice kindly suggests that Cynthia can call her by her first name without any formal honorifics, and she then asks if calling her Miss Cynthia would be all right. Rince adds that Cynthia can also call him Alice without any honorifics, and Cynthia agrees to this arrangement. Alice then politely asks Cynthia why she wanted to meet, and Cynthia explains that she was curious to meet the person who Sir Knight thinks so highly of. With sparkling eyes, Cynthia excitedly asks Alice if she had always been in love with Sir Knight from the very beginning, or if she only fell for him after he confessed his feelings. Alice looks a little surprised by the direct question, and Cynthia goes on to explain that the story of their engagement is famous even in her own country. Alice is completely shocked to learn that the news of her engagement has spread to other countries. Alice asks how the story is being told abroad, and Cynthia explains that there are so many different rumors that she wanted to meet Alice in person to learn the truth. Seeing Alice being put on the spot, X gently steps in and asks Lady Cynthia not to bully his fiancée too much with her questions. The conversation shifts as Alice asks X if he knew about the rumors and Rince apologizes, admitting he didn't mention it because he thought X might get embarrassed. Alice expresses her frustration not about the rumors themselves, but that X's grand confession has become such a public spectacle. Cynthia smiles and observes that she was surprised to see Sir Knight's natural smile, noting that he always seems to be forcing his expression but has a genuinely kind face whenever Alice is around. Alice agrees with this, confirming that the smile she was used to seeing always seemed a bit strained. Alice gazes warmly at X and says that he has always been a kind person, while X appears lost in thought. The topic changes again as Alice says she is more surprised by Cynthia's sudden engagement to Prince Rince and asks what led to it, prompting Cynthia to admit that she was the one who confessed her feelings. While sipping his tea, Rince confirms that Cynthia made a very bold public confession to him. Alice playfully remarks that it couldn't have been as bold as X's public confession, and X explains that he put on such a show in front of all the nobles because at that moment he was only thinking about Alice. Alice observes that Prince Rince and X seem to be very close, which Rince agrees with, adding that Cynthia had said the same thing to him. However, X firmly states that he has no intention of getting close to anyone other than Alice, and that is why he denied their friendship. Alice then notices that both Rince and Cynthia are wearing matching pendants and asks if they are a set. Cynthia is immediately flustered by X's romantic gesture and tells him not to become any more handsome, while Rince thinks to himself that he should learn from X's example. She explains that the pendant is a precious gift from X and has a stone that is the same color as his eyes, and she excitedly wonders if the ring on Alice's finger is also a matching piece. X sweetly explains that he gave them the gifts so they wouldn't feel lonely during the times they have to be apart. Later, Rince reflects on the day, noting that the magic hunters never appeared and the tea party ended safely. He concludes that it would be wise for them to remain on high alert going forward, and suggests to X that it might be a good time to officially start the Knight's Order he has been planning. The scene shifts to X approaching a group of children and an adult man named Fan, announcing his intention to have them all join his new organization. Fan immediately protests and begins arguing with one of the children, claiming he is much stronger. X calmly states that, in terms of ability, Fan is actually the most useless member of the group, a claim that Fan angrily denies. Fan demands to know why he was even invited, and a diagram shows that the group consists of one adult, one teacher, and several children, which is an unusual structure for a knightly order. One of the students expresses doubt about having Fan in their group, but the teacher defends the decision, noting that despite his flaws, Fan possesses a decent amount of patience. X watches them and asks if the children are his students, which they confirm, and he learns about their teacher-student relationship. Fan's pride is wounded, and he scoffs at one of the kids, challenging him to a fight, which forces X to step in and break them up. Fan asks X if he will still be joining the regular Knight Order, and X explains that he will be managing both that order and this new specialized organization, a feat that amazes the children. X formally announces that they are forming is a new order of knights, established under the command of His Majesty the King and Prince Rince, with the primary mission of handling dangerous matters like the group known as Prometheus. X reassures everyone that he has no intention of putting the children in any danger. He then looks directly at Fan and states that since Fan can use magic and is quite strong, he will be the one handling the more dangerous tasks, a realization that makes Fan break out in a nervous sweat. The children all cheer enthusiastically and promise to do their best, while a resigned Fan sighs and agrees to join, admitting that he owes X and doesn't have the right to refuse. The newly formed Knight Order gets off to a chaotic start, with its members already bickering and fighting among themselves. X watches them with a weary expression, realizing they have a long road ahead. Despite the chaos, he feels a sense of relief and turns his thoughts to his personal life, happy that he can now focus on preparing for his upcoming marriage to Alice. X daydreams about all the wonderful wedding preparations, thinking about the perfect venue, the dress, and the rings, all for a future where he can spend his life laughing happily with Alice. In stark contrast, a dark and ominous scene shows a group of villains plotting their next move, deciding to attack an orphanage in the lost Viscount X and his fiancée Alice arrive at a church surrounded by trees, with Alice wondering aloud if this is the correct location for their wedding preparations. As they stand before the large wooden doors, she admires the building, thinking it is a beautiful church and a good choice for their ceremony. A small boy with light-colored hair spots them from the doorway and excitedly calls out to Sir X, catching their attention. Alice, with a blissful smile, thinks to herself that being able to have her wedding with X is the greatest happiness she could ever imagine. As they are greeted by children from the church's orphanage, one boy asks X if Alice is the fiancée he is always talking about. X smiles warmly and agrees that she is cute, adding possessively that she is his, which causes a blushing Alice to chide him gently. Suddenly, a woman in a nun's habit with reddish blonde hair appears and introduces herself as Sister Rebecca from the church and orphanage, warmly welcoming Alice as the daughter of Duke Misty and inviting her to simply call her sister. Alice graciously introduces herself as Alice Misty and mentions that X has told her a lot about the place and its people. The children gather around, with one mentioning they heard Sir X and Alice are very close, which makes Alice blush and confirm it's true. One small boy tugs on X's coat and reveals that Sir X always talks about how much he loves his big sister Alice, as everyone shares a light-hearted moment over a cup of tea. Inside, Sister Rebecca expresses her surprise that they chose her humble old church, suggesting that a man of Sir X's stature could have a ceremony in a much grander place. Alice explains that they would prefer a small, intimate wedding with only close family, and expresses her genuine happiness to be in such a wonderful church. Rebecca is touched by her words, saying it's an honor to hear that, just as a clattering sound is heard from outside. The children then ask X if he came to see the priest, but Rebecca informs him that the priest is currently out. The curious children peek from behind a wall before gathering around the couple, prompting Rebecca to tell them to behave, while Alice smiles apologetically. One of the little girls asks Alice to explain what a fiancé is, and Alice describes it as a relationship between a man and a woman with marriage in mind. When the girl asks if it's always about someone you like, Alice explains that's not necessarily the case. X joins the conversation, touching a locket on his necklace, as he adds that sometimes you are lucky enough to end up with the person you love, like he did, but it's also possible to be matched with a complete stranger. The little girl then looks to Alice and asks if she is happy, to which Alice replies with a heartfelt yes, saying she is happier than anything. X watches Alice with a fond smile, but his expression suddenly sharpens as he hears a commotion. He stands up, adjusting his collar, and tells Alice there's a lot of noise outside that he needs to check on, leaving her looking concerned. X quickly finds a shocked Sister Rebecca and informs her that the priest is being attacked, sternly warning her and the children not to go outside under any circumstances. Outside, a blond man stands over the defeated priest, expressing his annoyance that X has interrupted his fun. The bruised priest recognizes Sir X, and the attacker smirks, remarking on the perfect timing. He reveals that he used the priest and the others as bait to lure X out, surprised that his target showed up personally. When X demands to know what the man's plans were, the attacker coldly details his intentions to kill the priest and sell the children and Sister Rebecca for a high price. From the doorway, Alice, Rebecca, and the children look on in absolute horror. The attacker explains that it's just a job, and he was likely hired by a noble who considers X a nuisance, as defeating him will bring a large sum of money. He then taunts X, asking if he plans to run away. X calmly warns the man not to regret his actions before delivering a powerful punch that sends the man flying backward with a loud thwack. The man's accomplices rush forward, but X is unfazed. He shatters one of their swords with his bare hand and swiftly moves through them, dodging and striking with incredible force. One of the thugs shouts that he's a monster as his comrades are left defeated on the ground. X finishes the fight by slamming the last thug into the cobblestone with overwhelming power. The lead attacker struggles back to his feet, cracking his knuckles and admitting that X's attack hurt, realizing his opponent can use magic. X correctly identifies the man's power as muscle enhancement, which surprises the attacker. The man rubs his sore neck, admitting he thought the job was too good to be true and now understands that X is no ordinary noble brat, but a being of monstrous power. He laments his terrible luck in having to face such a formidable opponent. X responds quietly that it isn't like that, but then his demeanor changes as he looks up with a chilling smile, telling the man he wouldn't be this serious if they had already ransacked the place. The attacker is shaken, realizing X is not joking, while Alice and Rebecca watch with apprehension. The man resolves to make one last desperate attempt, seeing no other way out. As he prepares to fight, X feels his own limit approaching, that in a flash of movement. The fight is over. The attacker is left defeated and ignominiously stuck headfirst in the broken cobblestones, muttering that this is bad. X looks at his own hand, briefly worrying that he failed to hold back his strength, but is relieved to see the man is otherwise okay. The priest thanks Sir X profusely for saving them all, but X clarifies that the attackers seem to have come for him specifically. Alice watches them, her hands clasped tightly as she quietly says X's name, her face filled with worry. Looking at the tied-up assailants, she wonders why everyone seems to attack X, and why he always finds himself in these dangerous situations without ever telling her. Overwhelmed with emotion, Alice rushes to X and hugs him from behind, telling him she was incredibly worried and won't forgive him for it. X, surprised by her actions, remarks that it's eccentric to worry about a monster like him. With tears in her eyes, Alice apologizes for worrying, prompting the defeated attacker to plead with her to take back her sentiment. Alice turns on the man, her voice filled with fury as she declares that she won't let anyone call X a monster because he is too important to her. X watches her, moved by her fierce defense. He then clarifies that while he possesses power beyond ordinary people, he despises being grouped with villains who find joy in the suffering of others. The attacker scoffs that it's easy for him to say that, insisting that deep down, X is just like them. Alice vehemently denies this, but X gently steps in front of her, telling her that's enough. He takes her hand and thanks her for getting angry on his behalf, and she softly explains that it's because he's precious to her, to which he lovingly replies that he loves her too. X admits that he is the one who is reckless, and that she must not follow his example. He explains that even though he has a unique power, Alice is the one who sees him for who he truly is, and he is happy that she protects him in her own way, as it's a matter of the heart. He leans in and kisses her tenderly, telling her that having her by his side gives him the strength to do anything. As they share this moment, Alice thinks about how unfair X is for always captivating her and stirring her heart, realizing she feels the exact same way. Their intimate moment is interrupted when a new man with light hair appears, greeting X as if they are old acquaintances.